Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Bill. How are you, sir?
I'm tired.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm tired. I,
me too.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm blaming it on the gym, just so I can feel better about myself.
You're blaming it on the what?
The gym, workouts.
Oh, okay. Have you been getting after it?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
I think that's part of it, honestly, but um, who knows? Before we were off air, I told you I snoozed this morning when the alarm went off, which I don't ever do. It's not something I really, my alarm goes off, I get up.
My snoozing has become egregious, right? And so I have the Pavlok, and the Pavlok has a setting on it that it won't stop zapping you until you get up and you do 10 jumping jacks.
Okay.
Like you can have it that hardcore if
Yeah.
if you want to. I've
Right.
never had to do that before. I don't really want to do it now. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, yeah,
Right. Because
yeah.
what's the point, right? What's the motivation?
I I don't know. I don't know. I'm a weird person when I'm sleeping. Like I know that sounds weird, but I don't know. I'm a grump,
Yeah.
very much so. So
Yes.
waking up from pain is not the best way to wake me up.
No, I wouldn't think. I really can't imagine that would be anyone's first choice.
No, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So, which is probably why even I wonder if he thought about this. Even the threat of that setting might cause you to
Yeah,
get up because you don't want to have to go to that extreme.
sleep anxiety.
Yeah.
What if I do fall asleep? It's going to zap me.
Yes. I have to
That,
get up.
that means that the setting is too high.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
true. You still want the good sleep.
yeah, for sure. Right? If you're just like laying there in a puddle, is it time yet? Is it time yet?
Yes.
You're probably not helping yourself very much. Good morning.
Good morning, Levi. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, Levi, as well.
How are y'all today? We're inviting you on the show today, so if you want to join us, just let me know. I'm actually going to
Yes.
put the link in the post now on the Facebook side. So if you want to hop on and chat, we encourage you to do so. Go put it on the LinkedIn side too here.
Woo.
We haven't talked about the fact that Q1's almost done either. Like,
Ugh, yeah, I know.
like we're in the last week.
Yeah. Wait, what? No, next week's the last week, right?
Okay, that's right. That's right. I mean, yeah. I mean, we have one more week, is what I'm saying. Like, isn't that right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, essentially, yes.
Okay. What's today? That's the real question.
Today's the 19th.
The 19th. Okay, so we still got 10 days or 11 days. What it is.
Yeah. I was like, man,
20.
your rounding is getting generous, but other than that,
Yeah, it's just my math in general.
okay.
It sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, end of first quarter. Like the goal is to have everything done with the book. Yeah, almost there.
Okay, that's awesome.
Almost there. Oh,
Did
yeah.
we see what Levi has to say on the subject?
Yeah, we should.
Which subject?
What's up, dude?
Hey guys, what's
up,
happening?
man? How are you, buddy?
Good, good. Excited to be a part of
today.
history.
Yeah.
This is Levi's like teletherapist background.
Man, ever since you said that, this has become my everything background. If my family's here, I'm like, get out, I need the living room. I have an important call. I will never do another demo in the corner of my bedroom again. It's too tight, John said. The walls are too close.
So soothing.
It's so funny because like this all matters now, right? When you're selling over Zoom, right? Because it informs a lot about who you are, right? And when it looks janky, it looks
They think
janky.
you're janky.
Yeah.
Like,
So
I kid you not, my wife, so she's graduated from house porn to actually getting approved for a mortgage and looking for a house. And she's down to like 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms because she knows I need an office now because we have to
yeah,
manage that space properly.
yeah.
Now it's just, do the boys have to have their own room each, or can they just like live on a bunk bed until like they're teenagers, and we'll cross that bridge till when we come to it.
Right.
And so, but it's a given. We have to manage my Zoom space properly now. So,
Yes.
Otherwise, you hijack living spaces. Is that what we're saying?
say again?
That's it. Otherwise, you'll hijack living spaces.
Right. Yeah. Or the common space will be a workspace whenever I need it, and that's bad for flow of the family, I suppose. So,
So Levi is also in sales, and he has 2 kids and a wife who is a teacher, and kind of gets a lot done. So do you do anything specific as far as balancing family stuff with sales stuff? Like how do you handle that with the kids?
So, and this has been kind of like the enigma with like what attracts me to this show, because I know that you guys are hardcore like accountability, talk it all out, set goals and stuff. But my only goal is to just appear to be as complacent as possible in between having to do like really responsible things. And so, because I mean, Jake should identify with this, and I finally found a way to explain it to my wife so that she understands. But when the way you do most of your decision making is by balancing one emotion against the other, every time they're evenly matched, you got to sit in a quiet space and just like let whatever thoughts occur to you enter your head, and just mull it over and like mentally digest it until like you puzzle it out enough to go one direction or the other. And I haven't found a better way. No amount of list making, no amount of preoccupying myself with menial tasks, much to my wife's chagrin, because that's how she likes to blow off steam. Right. Fortunately, man, it's such good symbiosis with us. I don't think she would describe it that way, but it feels really symbiotic on my side.
So if you're watching the show and you know me, what do you think Levi is right now on disc? If you just had to guess.
That shouldn't be a hard guess.
It should not be difficult.
This is Duolingo level 1. This is
exactly.
Hola. Yeah. And it's so funny because I mean it was what, like June, July that you introduced me to disc, and there was like no resistance whatsoever. I saw all those things on the page. I saw all the things that my style is supposed to be doing with others, and I'm like, yes, of course. And even the ones that felt kind of weird, I was like, I'm just going to adopt those because that's who I am. Let's do this. Just leaned right into it, and haven't looked back.
Yes, exactly right.
Man,
I was gonna ask you a question, but I just had to take that big O disc shot at you. Okay. What's the worst thing about being in sales, Levi?
I mean, prospecting.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. What is the best part about being in sales?
The conversations. It's just finding new and different ways to arrive to the same conclusion over and over again. Like for some reason, I'm only just starting to see after months of this, like how there's maybe some capacity for it to become a little like ho hum. But right now it's like I'm just learning about fascinating people who are taking life by the horns and just doing everything I can to make them talk about themselves. And all of that is kind of like new and different and fascinating for me in the selling environment. And so that's been kind of cool. Plus, I talked to lawyers, and that, like, at first I thought that would be kind of intimidating and difficult, but it's they're surprisingly human. Like I literally spent 40 minutes on the phone the other day. The lady almost made me cry. I swear I was this close as she was telling me about like her passion for family law was rooted in her childhood experience and how she doesn't want that injustice to occur to anybody else if she can help it. And we didn't talk about me or my service like at all. I literally just asked this lady follow-up question after follow-up question. I'm like, well, she's giving me pain, so I'm just going to keep diving deep into that. And then at the end, I barely managed to finagle her like into an agreement to have another appointment like the next day at the same time. And that was a 5-minute call where we just set a demo. And it was like, all right, I got a lady here whose passion is like on the back burner today, and now we can just schedule this and actually have like the conversation about my thing again. But
okay.
And they never and maybe I critique myself on this because I probably could have tried to transition her onto the demo then, but I was just so grateful to get not the lady from the day before that I was like, I'm just locking this down, and we're going to talk next week over a slideshow, and and it's going to be good or it isn't, but but it's happening. So. Does that answer the question?
It does. Okay.
Yeah.
So
in spades,
let's pull back the curtain. I'm going to give Levi a little bit of accountability on this call. Right? a little bit of coaching. Okay. So you did a 40-minute call, discovery call, to set up another discovery call.
It's a first for me. And it was like I critiqued the first call on one day because it was a disaster. Like I just had no control. Like I just like it was an exercise in surrender. Like, and the lady was just so passionate, and basically like I kept doing these like steering tactics to get her back to what we were there to talk about, and she just kept going deeper down the rabbit hole. And I was like, well, this hasn't happened to me before, so maybe I can give myself a pass and just see what happens.
Yeah.
And and then it took me 10 minutes of trying to get off the phone at the end of the call to actually get off the phone, which is a bad sign. I really didn't want to call her the next day, but it was
okay. So now I have two questions. One, knowing that it took you 10 minutes the next day to get the appointment for the demo, do you think that you could have handled and got that done on the first call?
The first call was just complicated by the fact that I had like my calls stacked up, and that should have created urgency to get off on time, but ultimately it ended up creating desperation to get off the call even as late as I did. And on top of that, like anytime you want to hear the recording of this call, you are welcome.
No. I've heard a tight Levi call. I don't think I need to listen to this.
No, like, peer therapist Levi call. Yeah, it was just man.
So here's my next question. Right. Okay. So she's very emotional, pouring out all over the place. Right. Great call. You feel awesome because you're an I and you need that emotion. Whoa, she really likes me. The next day you get on this next call, she's a totally different person. Why aren't your alarms going off then?
Well, the real question is, why am I ignoring the alarms that are going off?
It's better. Yeah, better question. Yeah, because like when you hit that call like as an I on day 2 and she's not all chatty and everything, do you have that moment of panic of like, well, you liked me yesterday?
I still felt like she liked me because, we did a little bit of small chat, and then she's like, hey, so clearly we didn't call to just talk about how passionate I am on this, like for 2 days in a row. So like, and I was like, okay, now we can have a real talk. This is great. Really, you guys?
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And it was, man, I can't see you. What'd I do?
I don't know.
Can you guys still see me?
Yeah.
Yep.
What?
Oh, well, I guess I don't have to see you to do this.
What was the best part of the call?
It's rare when I get to talk to a person that can really move me and like take me outside of like the strategy of active listening and asking like the right questions at the right time. Like it was just kind of new to me in that setting to just kind of get swept up in what the person was saying and kind of just let my goals kind of go on the back burner.
Yeah, that's called emotional attachment. But go ahead. Yes.
Right, but it's so rare with a lawyer, and like that, and it was more or less on topic. Like I did want her to talk about like why she got into law. I just didn't expect her to talk about it the entire time and bring up so much like
That's right.
history in the process, and and for me to also have no control, and so I was like, this is pain. Technically, I can work with this. It's happening in much greater volume that I'm accustomed to, but that doesn't mean I can't like redeem the call. And it didn't. And this lady was just so like genuine in her communication that it barely crossed my mind that I needed to be like, listen, lady, these conversations happen one of two ways. Either we do it my way or we don't do it. Like, it just never, I didn't.
Wait a minute. There's no way I taught you to frame like that. There's no way. Like
the boiled down brass tacks version.
Did you go read like a Grant Cardone book or something? Like is that what's happening? Oh man.
Well, it's kind of like a car wreck, though, right? Like an attorney showing emotion, so you're like,
yeah.
So there is that part of it. So since I'm Levi, I have the same problem. Is when I really, and John does too. He'll tell you he's just so well trained at this process that he pulls himself out of it. But he loves it when people are talking about dope stuff. He's like, "Oh yeah, let's do more of this. Yeah, that's awesome. Let's do this."
Yeah.
I think we're all that. But still,
I'm on a schedule.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like,
well, the question is, do you have any? Because I've had to do this for myself. Do you have any pre-prepared questions that when you get caught up in a loop like that, and someone's like going, I have found it helpful to have like 2 questions, for example, that bring the conversation back in a way that segues whatever they say into the next point, in your conversation. So I'm just curious if you have any stuff like that prepared.
The short answer is no. Like my process is to basically like before I spend like a bunch of energy researching and preparing for something, I want to face it enough times that like it feels unavoidable. And so, like, as an example, like these owner operators that have like a particular vision in mind for what their market is going to be, and they just want to get right down to what it is you're offering and for how much, instead of like play the game. Like those people, like I've been under pressure for months to like come up with a way to combat that and keep them like in my system for the call. And at first I was like, I don't necessarily have to like, worry about these. They happen so infrequently. But then I transferred this over pipeline and it's like 3 times a day. So it's like, okay, here we go. Maybe I should work on this. And I haven't had like literally any other calls go completely off the rails. And my instinct was to borrow a line from Alec Baldwin from 30 Rock, to enter the crevasse. Like when you're stuck on the wall of an iceberg crack and you can't climb up, you just have to climb down and hope that an icy river will take you out at some point.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So this is an important point to make. Levi actually works on 2 different pipelines, and he works with 2 different markets.
Yeah.
He works with family law attorneys, and then he also works with solar owner operators and installers. And what's happening is he's now figuring out that it has to change a little bit for these 2 different markets because different concerns are in play, right?
Yes.
So
framework differences. Oh
yeah, for sure, right? It's vastly different. So, but it's cool though because it's going to make Levi really good, right? The more difference you throw at it, the better you're going to be better at running your process, right?
John, did you post something about actually the first type? Levi said where people that were like, all right, just give me the cost here. What are we talking about right up front in the call? Didn't you post something about that maybe yesterday about how to get that back on track?
So I posted the other day. The most common conversation for me is with an agency owner who's like, oh, I close all my own deals. Like, okay, great. Well, I want a salesperson. Okay, why? If you're closing all of your deals yourself, John, once I get them on the phone, I'm good. I'm like, okay, congratulations. What do you need my help with? Well, I want a salesperson. Why would you want a salesperson if you're doing such a great job at this role? What's the expectation?
Right.
Well, they're going to do it better. How do they do it better? They're closing all the deals. I don't understand. Right? Because like, there's no way that I'm going to bring someone in and they're going to close at your close rate if you're closing all of them. We should put this. Okay, John, it's not all of them.
Right.
You even know what it is? Feels like a lot.
Yeah. It's infuriating every time you ask.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's yeah. So this is the cognitive dissonance about it. Oh, I'm an owner. I'm not a sales guy. I'm really good at this, but I want someone better than me. Okay, let's define what better looks like, because I don't understand your view of that.
Right.
You know.
Well, you also ask a question though about like when someone hops right in and goes, "Okay, I understand what this call is. You know, just let me know what's the deal here. What am I looking for as cost, as far as cost goes?" And you would put together some
cost for what?
Is that the question?
Yeah,
that's how we put it back on them.
Yeah.
Okay. The services.
Yeah. I mean, we can just roll for this. Jake,
yeah.
I'm not sure what services you need. Should we talk about that first? Because I mean, I can show you the buffet, but I'd rather hear a little bit more about like where you are, so that way, if we get to a point to where it sounds like there's something you really need, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
Do you think that's okay?
Yeah, I love that.
Okay.
I need to close 125% of my deals.
100.
I need the deals I close to close deals for me.
Yes,
at least a quarter of the time.
Exactly.
100% I close.
You like you said that in just pure absurdity, without really understanding that is the expectation of some of these people on these calls, right? Yeah. So what are you guaranteeing on these leads? Like I listen to so many of these calls, and these people just come in here like guns, like they at a foundational level, they don't understand how marketing works, right? And so they're looking at this like a Hail Mary, because like you spent some money on it before, but you didn't really give it the full try, so there was no adjustment, refinement, or anything else. So you tried something once, essentially, it sucked. Welcome to the world, and you're just never going to do it again. That doesn't make any sense, right? Mm-hmm. And I know that everybody's been burned, but I was in a conversation yesterday with one of my clients, a real estate client. We host their website, we do some other stuff with them, and we did local SEO, right? The map pack and everything. We did it for 3 months, and so we're sitting there, we're talking about her website because she wants to make some bigger changes to it, and she goes, "Yeah, and we did this SEO thing for you, and I thought that was a waste of money." Blatantly told me this, right? And here's the deal: I know that she's a D type, which is important.
Right.
Because if a C type tells me that, I cry a little bit on the inside. I die, spirit leaves the body, right? And if an S tells me that, I just die immediately. But for D's and I's, okay. So I didn't get upset. I would have earlier, right? Years ago. But I was like, okay, why do you feel that way? And she's like, well, we didn't really see anything. And I said, what was your expectation? She was like, well, I thought we were going to be here. And I was like, okay, this is my fault. It's not my fault. We talked about it, right? Pretty in depth before we did this thing, but why not? My fault. This is what we were going for here. Here's the map pack and everything. And you see how you're the first one here? That's because of stuff that we were doing. And she was like, oh, I had no idea. And I was like, our fault. Because it is our fault. On some level. So
I could have asked her if she understood the last several times you explained it.
yeah, that's really helpful.
I should have triple checked. Damn.
Hey, right? On some level, if I'm providing the service and I'm taking payment for it, if she has no view of what we're doing or why it's working or why she's paying for it, that's kind of my fault.
I mean, right? That's the play.
That's a great place to start from when you're problem solving anyway.
That's the Jocko route, extreme ownership. Find how it's your fault and own it. Because this is the thing that's been put together for me, is that like the Jocko thing and stoicism is pretty interesting, right? Because if I can find how it's my fault, then I have an opportunity to work on it. If it's really not my fault, if I played nothing into this thing, then by the way the Stoics look at things, it's got to go. Right? So if I can find my fault, then it makes sense for me to work on it. If I can't, then I got to put it down completely.
Yeah, and I think specifically that finding something that you can absolutely own is your fault to start. It's not own everything, right? Like, maybe I didn't explain that in the best way possible. That's my fault. Not, it didn't work. It's my fault, because it did work.
I used to work for this guy. His name was Leslie Patterson. It was at T-Mobile. It was my first sales job, and I was obsessed with poker at the time. Right? I mean, still kind of am, but more so then. This is before I played full time, and so one day I was talking about, or because he played a little bit of poker. He told me he played a little bit of poker. And I was like, okay, cool. And so then one day he was like, how was the weekend? I said, I played some cards. He's like, how'd it go? So I was talking about this hand with him. And he goes, what? And I was like, no, I'm thinking through the hand because I'm trying to think of like different ways to play the hand. And he goes, you can't question yourself like that. Just walked off. I was like, okay, odd. Okay. So about 2 weeks later, we're talking about poker again. And I realized that I should not be listening to this dude because he goes, you know, the hand doesn't even start until the turn, right? I was like, oh.
One of those.
Yeah, I should not have even been concerned with your advice in the first place.
You're an intuitive gambler.
Exactly.
What services are we talking about? Right? I need some context here.
But we went down this route because we were talking about me getting beat up by really determined owner operators to just establish that we're all the same except for cost. You know, and yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
that's the question you asked. That was it. You said, do you think I'm like everyone else? Is that a concern of yours?
Oh, yeah.
That's one of your go-tos for checking them a little bit to see if you can bring them into a more a less transactional conversation and, you know, more of an actual conversation.
And it's so funny because the more direct the conversation, or like the more direct of the company structure, the more direct the conversation is, right? So like solar guys, very direct because they're just acting very direct. Attorneys and some of these other people and stuff like this, because it's just there's more structure to it. It's not as direct. Do you think that's true, Levi?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like that, you know, I mean, the lawyers, I just assume now that they know that we're playing a game and they're familiar with it and they kind of budgeted for it mentally and emotionally, so they're just going to do it. Whereas the contractors that you talk to, they know what they want. And they want to find out if you can give it to them.
Yeah.
And you know, and that's basically just been how it is. And some of them are more willing to like kind of toe the line for a little bit than others, but invariably, like, you know, it seems like as soon as I'm framing that they have questions, I know they have questions, I give them some examples, and then I ask them which questions I should be readiest for by the end of the call, and then just like all of a sudden we're in pain and their wants, and it's like, oh shoot, I haven't had like a chance to talk about my questions or, you know, how they're empowered to tell me no at any point or what the end game is here. Like now I got to worry about circling back at some point to if it's even necessary. But most of the time it's just like checking them, and it's surprising because you can say things to these people like, you know, it's a pretty big indicator if I have this conversation the way that I want, that there's a room for a fit. And if we can't have this conversation, then that is kind of telling about what our future relationship will be like. And so I might as well give you your minutes back now based on what's happening. And then I expect people to be like, all right, click, but they're like, no, here, let me tell you this and that. And it's like, oh, somehow I kept them on the phone with that line, like, you know, and they're giving me some stuff to work with. So it's a work in progress. And it's, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, because it's so contrary to my nature to just tell people, like to check people and wait and see how upset they get, rather than just say the thing that I know is going to be the most acceptable, you know, or just listen and give them what they want. You know, I just feel like I know it's a finite number of instances where I'm in that moment where I can be a little more, I want to say calloused, but I mean more like accustomed to the sensation, so it influences me less in the moment. But right now, it's still just a powerful like pop, like every time it's like, oh, it's another one of these. Let's see how I do on this one.
Yeah, it's the kung fu, it's the jiu-jitsu, right? Because Levi has also trained jiu-jitsu in the past. It's that if you're waiting to think through the process to make the reaction, you're already so far behind, right? So when they're like, why should I buy from you? And you go, well, you know, they think that they got you now. They're like, boom, got him. Knew he was a liar. Stupid sales guy, you know, and stuff like this. And you're just like, so in those moments, you have to be able to put it back onto them. Excuse me. Ooh, Good Lord. Okay. Not sure what happened there. Those really kind of stuck.
Do we not say bless you to John in these situations? Is it just like part of my upbringing that I want to say that, even though I'm more like John in belief about God these days?
Well, my sister says scat.
Scat?
Like you went boo.
Melissa says science. Right, so literally I'll say, did you say science? I'm like, okay, that's funny. Yes. So if you're waiting to feel it and waiting to like process it and like have this kind of like moment of like, I'm going to come around and like put this thing, you're already so far behind. So that's the thing that we practice for, right? Gradually just kind of ramping up that intensity. So they're like, why should I buy from you? Mainly buy it. Maybe you shouldn't.
Oh,
yeah. We're not a good fit. I hope that you don't.
Too much.
You're just another record I was hoping to close today. Everything I needed.
Get off my call.
The other thing, Levi, is you could probably adjust your frame so that way the part where like you're asking about their questions comes at the end, right? So you could do, hey Levi, I've got this for 30 minutes. You have 30 minutes. Okay, great. Goal here is to figure out if this is a fit. If it's not, I really hope you can tell me. Can you tell me? Sure. Okay, great. I'm going to tell you as well. To get to my no, I'm going to have some questions for you. It's going to be like this and this and this and this and this. And to get to your no, you're probably going to have some questions for me, like this. Anything else? Should we start there?
Yeah.
I want to go back to what Levi said about pain or about anger. Like he was asking questions or using pushback and seeing how angry they were going to get. And like, that's not the way that I'm viewing it. Is it's a clarification question. It's never a.
That's because you have more D. That's because you have more D than Levi does.
Okay. I was saying
because need to be liked higher than yours is.
Yeah.
Right.
I run into fiery determination to get specific knowledge, and it's like, oh crap! Like this is not going to be a back and forth. I got somebody a little angsty on the line. And, usually it's accompanied with them qualifying themselves really hard. Like, I've done this and this and this. And have you seen my domain name? It's like one of the first domains in the state. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, okay. So I am underqualified for this conversation then? Like, why don't
Yes, that's the thing you say.
Yes.
like, hey, you probably got it all figured out then.
Why are we talking?
Yeah. Why would you need our help? Get clarity on it, right? Because until you ask that question and force him to kind of step out of that thing, right? Interrupt that pattern so that way he's got to like step out and like actually be a human for a moment. He's just going to run that pattern, right? That D pattern. Let me tell you how awesome I am. I got the first time. Like, yeah, that guy, terrible prospect. But if we don't like kind of like have that moment of like trying to like shake him and jar him, so that way he has to look at us as a human and be a human himself, then the whole rest of the call runs exactly the way that it did. Right. I mean, it's not a great call, but man, well, let me tell you about me. Okay, blah, blah. Man, that all sounds really great. What were you hoping I could do? And then you're going to figure it out because you're not rising to their, well, let me tell you what we can do. And we can do this better and all of this stuff, right? They're like, some people are just waiting for you to do that. And then the minute you do that, they're like, so no, I don't know that you need my help.
So do you have anything that pops up, Levi and James, the opposite? I'm trying to think what the opposite would be, right? Because like you have these really hard charging attorneys, because I used to talk to attorneys in the agency world too. But then you have the ones that are just super quiet. They want you to hang yourself on the call, essentially, because it's an attorney style, right? How do you pull information out of those people? And do you run into those type of conversations too with attorneys?
Usually those folks are an S style. So deep down, they want to be people pleasing. And so like, if I find myself struggling to like get information out of them, then, usually the only go-to for me is to make myself vulnerable. Help me to understand here. I'm a little confused, like what is it we're here to talk about? And then hopefully they'll give you, some info. But it's rare that I get like a real cold fish on the phone that just is just intent to just sit quietly and wait for you to finish teaching them. And so, for the most part, because I got this whole like in the beginning, I'm like, listen, I got to warm up a little bit. I hope you don't mind it, like indulging me with a couple of minutes of small talk here, like while I just get ready
warm up a little bit.
Yeah, like these calls go a lot smoother if you can help me to just get things rolling here with a little bit of small talk, and then usually like then that just kills that that concern, because once they start talking, then as soon as there's a lull in the conversation, frame, pain, budget, move to demo, and but with those folks, you don't really know if any of it worked until they show up for the demo. Because they're the likeliest to give you the lip service and tell you what they think you want to hear, and then ghost you later. So every time I have like a really great call with somebody other than an I, that's like what we're describing. Like at the end, it's like a coin toss. It could be anywhere. Like they gave me what I wanted, but I don't know that that's good in this instance. So, well, I guess we'll see on the demo if it makes.
Well, that and D's, because D's are like, screw you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to waste my time even talking about a demo.
Yeah, give me the calendar invite.
So and these are becoming like because in certain respects this is it's a game. Like forward progress counts as a win for me, not like actually get the goal of a close.
Yeah.
And so the D's are like the more exciting players right now, because they have a wider variety of things they could throw at you, and it's faster and more intense. And whereas S's and I's, and C's are all like they're getting a little bit like mundane by comparison. So it's I think I'm going on, but I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, the D's get like a bad rap, like all the time, right? And even knowing Clint and knowing like some other like really 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 awesome D personality types, like in the back of my head, I've got this kind of negative connotation about, oh God, the D. But once you get to the point, it's such a perfect refinement loop, right? You're gonna get this. You're gonna get equal pushback, right? Because they just don't care, right? So it's almost like a pure reflection of you in that conversation, right? But it's like it's just ramped up, right? Because like when you get a D to where they trust you, right, and they want to have a conversation with you, and like the manipulation and poking the bear and like all this thing is done, it's such a good conversation. But your intention has got to be like nailed, because if it's off at all, and even if they think it's off, you were done. And like you're not getting back in front of them either, because since they're D-type, they don't care, right? The reactivation campaign on a D, not worth the time, So eventually, these become the kind of people you go seek out, because they're going to be honest with you. You're going to get really quick feedback. You're going to get an answer. You're going to know exactly where you stand, right? And then it's also just rather convenient that D types are the most common in C-suites. And since the idea is to call at the top, right, to network and get connected at the top of the pole, so that way they can give you a yes or a no versus just no. It's nice that it gets to that point, because
you've really helped me, especially working with James, to see D styles as just people that look at productivity as a virtue, and like they owe it to themselves and the rest of the world to be true to that virtue. And and it's not personal when when they're putting that ahead of your goals. It's just and
did everybody hear the total inflection on that?
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. Continue, Levi.
And it lends itself well to that mindset of like, as a stone sharpens a sword, one man sharpens another, and it's so I love especially like I'll give myself credit for being somewhat of an enlightened eye. Like if I don't get my feelers handled just right, I can digest that and move on and and be fine, and that's great, because D's don't care about feelers, so you just gotta adapt and take advantage of their drive, and so that's been a neat experience for me. Like, 'cause in my REI life, D styles were like the banes of my existence. Just like you were just keeping an eye out for when one was going to roll around the corner and complicate your life. And and now it's like I hitched my wagon to a solid D style, and things are just going up from here. And so it's been a journey for sure. And on that note, fellas, my housekeepers are due to walk in any moment, and I have a sales meeting in 6 minutes. So thank you for letting me be a part of history. I've enjoyed this experience. It's been it's been really neat watching y'all's accountability journey, getting to see like the human fragility behind all the leadership has been very enlightening, and I'll miss this. I hope that you guys find something new and effective, and I guess marketable is one of the goals now. You guys need more people to watch these or something. So
okay, no, wait, damn it! All right, this thing I didn't want to have happen. All right, if the best 5 minutes is before the video and after the video, why do the video?
My question is, why are the best 5 minutes before and after the video? Why can't you do your best work while I'm watching? Is it me? It's me, isn't it? Like, you guys were killing this.
There it is.
This before. All of a sudden, I'm in here heckling you guys every other day, and now like you're not comfortable putting your best stuff out. And so it only crossed my mind this morning that there might be anything in there, but
no.
Hopefully you'll find a way to share it and be authentic on camera, so that you guys both feel like you're getting stuff done. And of course, if there's anything I can do to help, I know you guys are like several orders of magnitude higher up the food chain than I am, but anything I can do, please let me know. I'd be thrilled.
You're kind.
Very kind.
Yes.
And to address the only reason I didn't get on here before is because you didn't ask me until Shark Lady was on, and she was magnificent. Like there was no way I was going to follow that. And like nobody else, I don't know if you noticed, but nobody else came on after her either. Like you just kind of filled the guest spot by bringing in what's her name, Anne?
Grover.
And so
I mentally in my head, I can picture Levi having these moments in front of the mirror, like oh hey Bill, like doing this thing, and then he sees the episode with Stevie Don, and he's just like the dream is dead. There's like a tombstone,
like,
cracks it off in the box, puts it in the attic.
Yeah, in a way, it was kind of a relief that you guys were packing it up. It's like, oh, okay, I don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Sweet
Stevie
guys.
Don killed it. All right,
Stevie Don. Oh, that's right.
Stevie Don.
I was way off. Stevie Don. Cool. I gotta follow her or something. I should follow her.
Yeah. She's the boss.
Cool. All right, guys. Best of luck. Stay in touch.
Hey, homie.
Let's play some disc golf soon. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye. We will.
All right. So to what's happening here in the comments. Okay. So I feel like I am being transparent. Like I'm not intentionally not talking about things. There are things that are. Some of these deals are ongoing, right? The conversations are ongoing, and not everybody wants it super widely acknowledged that they're working with a coach or a sales coach.
Well, and some people just don't want their business on the air anyway, no matter what the situation is. Like, I just don't want you talking about our relationship on the air. It's
exactly. So
it's fair.
So the thing that happens, Anne, is that I don't know. Jake says that there's a quality that happens before the call and after the call where I'm a little bit more direct.
Yeah, I was going to say, what distinguishes it is on the disc side is C, John, comes out off air more often than on air, because on air, John tries to be more I, like he does on sales calls, which that's, it's training. He wants to be personable, and which is good because we get we get Lubbock story from that. We get fantastic stuff for the air, but from the accountability standpoint,
as soon as the camera goes off, it's like, hey, all right, so what are you really doing today?
yeah, exactly.
Why is this taking you so long, right? So and I don't know, like maybe there's a version, dude, you got to stop leaning off, bro. So maybe there's a version of this that we can do that. I'm not really sure, but I don't know. It's very hard to separate at this point, right? These two kind of like conflicting ideas. So I don't know. It's not intentional, and it's not about like, well, it's not big, so we're not doing it anymore. like that's not the case. But if the best part is before the show is on, then why do the show unless it's to grow it? Right? Like mentally, this idea now makes sense to me. Like that's my mental process flow.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If the best part is not on the show, why do the show unless it's to grow something? Okay, I'm totally down for that. But if it's not growing, which kind of seems like we've kind of stalled out, which is totally fine, then maybe we don't do it in this version of it. Thank you, Anne. I think you're awesome as well. I'm uncomfortable with having to put this thing down, so I don't really like that we're putting it down. I just, it takes up a lot of bandwidth mentally for me.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, this is what the show's about too. Is I like getting up every day and talking to John. We talked about that, and off air and on air. I enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
We both have a hard time when something isn't doing something specific, growing, in quotes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Keep on doing it, right? And so the show itself is not growing an audience and not particularly, creating business opportunities necessarily quickly or anything like that. So that part of it goes, well, that's not working. So we either need to put it down or find a new version, right?
Yeah.
But then
the easy thing to do would be to continue doing the show.
Right. Show up.
Right. Yeah. We've been doing this for a year. Let's just keep doing it. But if I look at everything I do to bring in business, to bring in prospects and network and to get into relationships and stuff, I already have a relationship with Jake. Mm-hmm. And I already have a relationship with like everybody who comes in here and is watching the show. So it's not really growing me in that kind of manner. So what happens is I need to find another prospecting method. This to me is a prospecting method. Sales Throwdown is a prospecting method. All my networking is a prospecting method. And where I come from, if a prospecting method is not generating the results that you want, it is time to put it down and go figure out another one. Right? So you build a plan, you run an experiment, and then you adjust. So adjusting for this is growing it, like rapidly growing it, which means product development and everything else behind it. And I don't have the bandwidth to do that. Jake doesn't either. And we don't have funds to put into someone who's going to come in and build this stuff with us,
right?
And handle that.
And if we are honest about the content of the show, we don't share content. We share a relationship, we share concepts, we share values around productivity and different things like that. But as far as like prospecting from I need to find people to talk to today about sales training, that doesn't fit my funnel, and vice versa for John. I need to find people to talk to about X. So is there a way to make that work? Possibly, but it's not obvious, So from a content, we're doing productivity stuff, really.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah.
So this is now the moment. So essentially, this is what happens with like every podcast.
Okay.
Right? Because like the podcast is, it takes time. There's funds to produce it and things like that. And then what happens is you either get some traction in some way, shape, or form, but on the other side of it, there's this whole other side of podcasts, which are just lead generation podcasts.
Yeah.
Right. And there's always this pressure of just turn it into that. Right. If you don't have a lead gen podcast, every coach you talk to about a podcast will tell you, oh, set that on fire and rebuild it as a lead gen podcast. It's like, that's not really why I'm doing that. And that's not why I'm doing this. But with like, I do have new relationships with people because of that podcast that have led to business. Right.
Let's talk about that quick then, because there's you put two versions out there, which I agree with, but there might be a third version. Gabriel might be a version of that. There's the lead gen podcast, which this is not, right? There's an audience podcast where your goal is to grow an audience so that you can sell, advertising space if you want, basically. So you can either go for a large audience or a very specific audience to do lead gen with.
Yeah.
Which you just got really blurry for some reason.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what's up with my
The third one, which I'm not that familiar with, is, and what made me think of this is the way you talked about networking. There is where you are creating a space where you can come and meet new people by creating a space that people can show up for, and you look at that as a way to network.
That's what this was supposed to be for me.
Okay, but that still requires bringing people through it on a regular pace. So it's still kind of audience growing. Because you got to talk to new people.
Yes.
Yeah. So then the question of that becomes: is there a way to do that version of the podcast with the time and money that you have? And that's where we stalled out. Doesn't mean it's like there isn't a way to do it. That's not what I'm saying.
No, it's very. I mean, it's not hard to do it at all.
It's not hard. No, actually, well, the audience building part, I believe, takes concerted time or money to build an audience.
Agreed.
Okay. Yeah.
I see it's more about accountability, I think, being your experts. Yeah. I mean, and you're right, but when you bring on a guest, you're going to look awesome because you brought them on, right? So you're going to get into the good part of the conversation, like what do you really need, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we've had some guests on here. It's been not super regular, and we don't really have like a repeatable system to like go out, because the people that I brought on are friends of mine, right? They're current connections. Mm-hmm. So we needed a way of bringing in people who at least I didn't know, right? So for it to be beneficial in the long term, but we don't have that system or process built up, and Jake doesn't have time to do it, and I don't have time to do it. So where we are.
Yeah. So who knows? Maybe it's maybe a pause and something else. We figure something else out, because John and I love talking about what we talk about and talking about it with each other. So that's never an issue. It's just more of what's available and what are you optimizing for, right? And do we have the bandwidth to do it right now?
Yep. I've spent a lot of time like launching stuff and doing stuff that was supposed to do something. And like this year kind of feels like cleanup of like a lot of that stuff, and really just kind of like having a much clearer grasp on where my time is spent and why. So, and then also being clear about the fact that like I can't work on something and not want to improve it. Like it's just not in me, right? So of the idea of like just having a show, right, of accountability and stuff like this is fine, but like in the back of my head, and it is kind of, sometimes it's way back here and sometimes it's right here, is okay, like what are you gonna do with this? Like how do you turn it into something so that way it's more helpful to like other people? Because this conversation is helpful, but you don't need more of this. You need to go implement, right? So how do we help people actually take those like first couple of steps? And that's like what is like always in the back of my head of like, getting people to take action.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. Yeah, mix it. It's just, I always talk about good, better, best with people, because it's just such an easy way to get like, this is a good thing. We're not saying it's a bad thing.
Absolutely.
We're always looking for better and best, right? That's the thing. It's not a better or best for John and I. That's why the conversation came up the way it's currently laid out. It's a good. So we definitely love doing it. It's just not the better or best yet. So we know what that looks like.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of looking at it. There's no problem with it. Just not doing everything that we needed it to do. And so that bandwidth needs to be reallocated. Yep.
And I think we automatically jump to the, it must stink. It must not work. It must be horrible. Something must be wrong. Or it's just not where you want it to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I did an hour of Clubhouse coaching yesterday.
I saw the link. How did that go?
Nobody was there, but I was there, right? I didn't, this is the first week of it. And so I didn't really do like a great job of like putting it out there, right? Like I made a couple of posts and kind of did my normal thing, but you have to do the room 3 times for it to be considered to be a club. So I'm going to do it twice more and then put an application in for that, so that I can just have a room for that. So it was time well spent, even if there wasn't anybody else in there, because I was also networking in another call anyway. So
okay, yeah,
it was good.
I'm doing the same thing right now, actually, because I already did my application and I got put in the queue. So I got to do the calls as well.
And what do you mean Clubhouse coaching? Like, help on like how to do it, or you want coaching over Clubhouse? See that question right there? Clarity. Don't make the assumption.
What do you mean by Clubhouse coaching? Yep.
Yeah.
I learned that from you. Tell me more about that. I'll often say that too. Oh, okay. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm new to it. Okay. Well, let's talk about it now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not. I mean, I guess just by comparison, I'm an old pro, but not really.
What website are you putting out there for people? Like what centralized? John Small Mountain?
John Small Mountain, yes.
So if you want to hang out with John,
yes,
John, you want to hang out. This is where you get. I'm gonna put it in the comments.
Stuff about the book, stuff about experiments I'm working on, the Sherpa newsletter. This is all johnsmallmountain.com. It's all on there.
Then I'm going to dump mine in there too and go for retention. Effectiveretention.com. That's how you get a hold of me. If you're looking for business coaching or consulting around your message. So that's the two spots where you can find us. And,
how was yesterday? We didn't even talk about that.
Yeah. Busy. It was a busy day. It was good. I mean, I hit all my daily goals.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd say it was good. How about you?
It was good. I went and met that client in person. It was in Mansfield, and like in my head, I always think I know where like Mansfield is, but it's always further away, right? And so the client down there is a realtor client. So we were talking through like what would be helpful to her, and she just got her broker's license, and I was like, interesting. So as a broker, like what are you concerned about when you're looking to bring on a new agent? So we kind of got to talk through that, because as we make this push into real estate and stuff like this, just any conversation I can get around it has got value. Mm-hmm. And so she starts talking about, her concerns around that. And so then we start talking about leads, right? Like, hey, if I could bring you any kind of lead, like what do you think the perfect kind of lead is? And she was like, for me, the perfect lead is someone who's going to be either moving up, right? Because that means that I'll get to do 2 transactions. And I was like, okay, why is that important? And so we were just kind of talking through it. And I was like, interesting. Okay. If I could bring those leads to you, what would they be worth? And she was like, easily $200 a piece. And I was like, okay, so if I can figure out a way to get you those kinds of leads for $200 or less, what happens then? She's like, I'll buy them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Simple sales conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So now later on, once I figure out how to get those leads built and delivered and fulfilled to her at that dollar amount or less, I can then go back and be like, okay, great. What do you want to do now?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. And I think that's a model that's already like very well known in real estate. Like they pay per lead a lot of times. So when you have that active model out there, that makes it so nice for the conversation, because you can back into it really quickly, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. Now I don't know if I can get her leads at that dollar amount for that price, right? Like I have to go figure out if I can build that. But if I can, then we have a shot at it. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. Cool. So what's the wrap for this week then? Why don't we just leave everybody with something, some sort of like thing that we.
Yeah. So accountability means doing hard stuff. Like that's what this is, being really, really, really honest and transparent about the things that you're optimizing for. We all have the same amount of time. So if you're not incredibly intentional and deliberate with how you spend it, it still gets spent. So, and just, you also have to know yourself, right? Because like, I don't mind spending time doing this, but I also know that like, it's going to bother me, right? Because we have to grow it. Like, let's turn this into something. Let's do shirts. Let's do a course, and like at different times of doing this, like we both have kind of popped up with that, right? Jake will pop up and be like, hey, we should do something with this. And I'm like, yeah, and then we'll get busy, and then I'll pop up. Hey, we should do a little bit. Yeah, okay. And we both have this thing, and so my concern, right, is that continues to like agitate and grow, right, become a bigger deal and take up more bandwidth. And then when these pop up happens, you know, they're met with like anxiety or, you know, frustration.